Hello my dear friends. Welcome everyone, I'm Andras from Hungary. I'm going to tell you an interesting story, which shows that skiing is not only about snowy slopes and sliding. It was 1976. After finishing high school, I worked in Budapest for a year. I had the great good fortune to win a one-week ski trip to Austria with 3 friends in a sports quiz. It was a huge thing at that time, because it was not easy to get out to the west. We had a total of 20 other athletes and several coaches on the bus with us. We arrived in Hochkar Ski Resort. We just gazed and gazed as we saw the beautifully groomed slopes. The first day we had ski training in the morning, and from midday onwards everyone was free to ski. The others ended up in the snack bar after a while, so I skied alone. On one of the downhill runs, I caught sight of a beautiful young woman who was skiing extremely well. I stood a fair distance behind her and tried to imitate her turning technique. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I was hoping a little that I might get to know her. In my daydreaming, I wasn't paying enough attention and slipped on an icy patch. I lost control of the skis and ran into the lady of my dreams at quite a speed. We both took a huge fall and our skis came off. We slid down the icy slope on our backs for about 50 meters and then came to a stop, one on top of the other. We lay tangled together on the snow. What can I say, this was not exactly how I had planned to get to know her. We collected our skis, which were scattered everywhere. Then we introduced ourselves. It turned out her name was Natasha. Unexpectedly, she invited me to the buffet for cake and tea. By this time, I knew German quite well, having taken private German lessons in Budapest, and having been to the then GDR several times in a German-only environment. The conversation was light and cheerful. I noticed that the pretty lady spoke German with a slight accent, but I did not attach any particular importance to it. She was very impressed that I had traveled to Austria as a sportsman on a reward. 2 hours flew by quickly, and when we said goodbye, she unexpectedly wrote down her address on a piece of paper and asked me to come over in the evening. There was a small get-together and she would like to have me for dinner. I thanked her nicely and went home to the hotel. There I told the others what had happened, and that I didn't feel like going there, because what was I supposed to do in a strange company? "You're crazy," said one of the coaches. "She likes you," he added. "You're going and that's it," he said, pushing me into the shower and even giving me shampoo. The others gathered a fancy shirt, and one guy gave me his cool winter coat. They also pulled out a small box of brandy cherries from somewhere so I wouldn't go empty-handed. Afterwards, the coach practically pushed me out of the house. "Don't come out until you've taken the castle," he said jokingly. I arrived at Natasha's around 8 p.m. I knocked on the door of her beautiful big house. She opened the door in her lovely miniskirt dress. She was delighted with the gift of sweets. In the living room, a beautifully laid table greeted me with more and more delicious food. But the other guests had not yet arrived. I asked, "When are the others coming?" "I'm not waiting for anyone. I was waiting for one," Natasha replied. "Who, your friend?" I asked. "No, for you," Natasha replied, then grabbed my jacket and pulled me towards her. She stroked my face with both hands, then put her arms around my neck and hugged me. Our lips touched. We were almost kissing, when I looked over her shoulder and saw 2 tiny children's heads peeking through the living room door. "I see very cute children," I whispered to Natasha. Natasha turned around and laughed and said to her children of about 3 years, a little girl and a little boy, "Aren't you asleep?" So we had company for dinner after all. We laughed a lot and fooled around. It turned out that Natasha's husband had died in a motorcycle accident, and she was raising the 2 children alone. It was after 10 o'clock, but the 2 children just wouldn't go to sleep. We were listening to music, and suddenly I hear Natasha saying to the children in Russian, "What a nice guy, I'm in love with him." And the children repeated in chorus, "He's good, he's good." Later, I found out that Natasha met her Austrian husband in Moscow, and that's how she came to Austria. They did not know at that moment that I spoke Russian well, as I had been learning it for 8 years from native teachers. I raised my hand and asked for silence, and then I started singing the song Podmoskovny Vechera. Natasha and the children opened their mouths. Natasha wept with emotion and hugged me. "Do you speak Russian?" she asked. The children danced for joy. There was no mention of sleep. Holding hands, they took me into the children's room and began to show me their toys. There was a very cool toy electric train, but it wasn't put together properly. I set about making it and started playing with the kids on the floor. For a moment it occurred to me that I was a little far off the coach's instructions about taking the castle. But I really enjoyed the game. Natasha and I lay down on the mat, and while I lay on my stomach, she put her head on my back and watched the game with a smile. Time flew. Suddenly the children fell silent, their forefingers over their mouths, indicating that their mother had fallen asleep on my back. I gently slipped out from under her and carried her into the bedroom. I covered her up, and then put the children to bed. I tried to leave the house quietly, but the children suddenly appeared in the hallway and wouldn't let me leave. They insisted that I open the sofa in the living room, and they would sleep there with me. I thought I would wait until they were asleep, and quietly sneak out of the house. But after a good skiing day on the fresh air, and a hearty delicious dinner, I fell asleep before they did. In the morning, I was woken up by an elderly Austrian lady, wondering what I was doing here. It turned out that she was the housekeeper, who should take the children to the kindergarten in the morning. In the meantime, Natasha woke up, and there was a bit of a scuffle. Because the children didn't want to go to kindergarten, they wanted to play with me. It was a chaotic situation. The children were shouting in Russian, and the Austrian lady was shouting in German, while trying to get the children dressed. She finally succeeded, and took them to the kindergarten. Natasha and I were left alone in the apartment. I was a little afraid that her feelings would be gone by morning, but my fears proved unfounded. I did as Uncle Coach instructed. I took the castle. I did not ski that day. So that's the story, my dear friends. If you liked it, subscribe to my channel and like me. Greetings, everyone.